All right, good morning or afternoon, everyone. As I mentioned earlier, this is Mark here, and today we're going to cover off one of our sort of newer products that's been around for about 16 years for Business Central, which is our Enhanced Planning Pack. So Enhanced Planning Pack is what we're covering today, but we do have a number of other solutions related to manufacturing and distribution that kind of, if you're looking at Enhanced Planning Pack, you're probably going to want to look at one or more of these other solutions because you're going to have these same requirements, or these additional requirements if you're doing this type of planning that we're talking about today. Now, specifically in the Enhanced Planning Pack, what that encompasses are these tools here. So these are sort of the sub applications, if you will, within the Enhanced Planning Pack. The primary one being the Enhanced Planning Worksheet. So I mentioned earlier, sort of off to the side that, this has been around for about 16 years. We built this way back when, for like NAV version 4. And, we've got tons of people that have been using it over the years. We've just never sort of published it and sold it as an actual product. So that's changed now, where we are now selling the Enhanced Planning Worksheet via AppSource and for on-prem. And included in that Enhanced Planning Worksheet is, sort of vendor planning management. So if you're in distribution and you need to plan more at the vendor level than the item level, this kind of gives you some tools to help with that. We also have some forecasting. I'm going to go through all these in the demo here in a moment, but the forecasting worksheet to extend the base Business Central forecasting. If you're in manufacturing and you have complex bills of material, this gives you an easy way to sort of edit, manage, visualize those BOMs. If you don't want to do forecasting, but you want to manage your min maxes and those sorts of things, we have a tool for that. And finally, routing analysis, where we can go in and evaluate what's happening on the shop floor compared to what we expected to happen. All right, so I'm going to cover off all of these tools here in the demo. So let's jump into that now and get going. All right, so that slide that I just had up, these are really over here. I've got the the tools available here. This is really what that Enhanced Planning Pack covers. And I'm going to sort of start with, if I was working logically, I'd first want to do my forecast, then I'd want to plan it, and then I'd want to do a bunch of other stuff. So let's jump into forecasting first. So the Enhanced Forecasting Worksheet, what this does is it extends the Business Central forecasting capability. So if you go into an item card or an item list and you look at the fact boxes, it'll have a little forecast fact box there with a little chart that says, hey, this is your expected sales and everything for the next few months. Well, it looks great, right? It's a nice looking little fact box and things like that, but it's pretty useless from being able to perform any actions based on that information. So what we've done is we've taken that capability and we've extended it out into this sort of worksheet format. So what this allows me to do is for a specific item filter, or for specific item category, as an example, like I'm going to do this chair here and location and everything else, I can come in and I say, I want to do a 3-month forecast based on my 12-month sales history, right? So we can do it by week, month, quarter, year, those sorts of things. But I'm going to do a 3-month forecast based on my previous 12 months of sales history. And then I'm going to hit calculate forecast. And what this does is it takes my sales history, sends that off to the Cortana machine learning model that Microsoft maintains. So this is Microsoft's forecasting model, right? All we're doing is taking the data, sending it to Microsoft. Microsoft is crunching the numbers in their forecasting model and sending the data back to us to show you. So if we look at this first one here, after we run that forecast, we've got, this is the Cronus data, so all the dates are in 2020, way back when. But, this is my forecast for that particular chair and this one and so on and so forth. So it breaks that forecast out for us. We can see it, and that's basically it. This is my sales forecast for the month. And if I agree with all this, I just say update demand forecast here. And what that will do is it will push all of these values into the standard Business Central demand forecast paged in tables, so that when I run MPS or MRP, it's going to use this and generate the suggestions based on that forecast. Now, maybe you don't want to use the forecast. You don't like the demand forecast stuff, or you don't want to use it for some reason. If you look over here, we've got some calculated values. So we've got the safety stock, reorder point, maximum inventory, reorder quantity, a bunch of fields like that. These are calculated based on your formulas. So what this will do is it'll look at the forecast, and it, based on the formulas you provide, it will figure out what your reorder point and your maximum inventory is and all that kind of stuff automatically for you. And then you can do this update item planning, and it will push those values into the item card to allow you to plan at that level. Okay, and just to show you what that looks like, I'm going to just bring up the setup page for an enhanced forecast. If we come in here, this is the type of formula you can set up. So there's a bunch of variables like average daily usage. So my safety stock is going to be my daily usage times my lead time. So this will calculate my safety stock and so on and so forth. So again, with the enhanced forecast worksheet, you can either push the direct forecasted values, the ones that Microsoft forecast for us. We can push that directly into the demand forecast tables in Business Central, or if we prefer, we can update the planning parameters for that item based on formulas you provide that define how you want to manage that stock. Okay, so that's a little bit on the enhanced forecast. And then of course, once the forecast is in there, or once the planning parameters are done, we're going to want to jump in and actually run a plan to, execute this forecast or look at these planning parameters. So how do we do that? The enhanced planning worksheet allows us to go in and perform both the standard Business Central MRP planning and also, a different mechanism for planning, which is purchase-oriented planning. So if you're in a distribution environment, I'll show you those two in a sec. But first, let me point out sort of some of the key things that Enhanced Planning Worksheet brings to the table. Really, what it does, like if you look at this, you go, hey, that looks exactly like the standard planning worksheet, right? Pretty much. There's a bunch of lines here. There's some fact boxes, and yes, you could use it exactly like you use the existing planning worksheet within Business Central. But what we add to that, over on the side here, we've got a little bit of supply demand summary. So these are all nice to have little things, and we underestimate the value of these additional capabilities, right? When you're doing planning, if you're a planner and you've got 500 lines to deal with, you want this type of information at your fingertips. You want to be able to see, what's my sales demand, what's my service order demand, all that kind of stuff. And you want to see what the net result of that plan is going to be, right? And then we can also see other companies and locations and those sorts of things in here as well. And if you've set it up, I've got probably 10 locations within this company. I only care about these 3 because when I'm planning, I might decide, what, I don't want to actually, manufacture this particular item. I might see another location that's got a bunch in stock, and I can come in here, switch it to a transfer order and transfer it versus, manufacture it. So this ability to see what other locations have is kind of handy. Down here, we've got the vendor planning summary. Now that's a manufactured item, but if I choose a purchased item, we can see for that particular vendor, we can see exactly what I'm planning to spend for that with that particular vendor, and do I meet my minimum prepaid amount? So this is more from a distribution perspective, right? If I have minimum, well, maybe manufacturing as well. If I'm buying steel plate or something, I'll have like a minimum spend before I can get prepaid shipping or a discount or something like that. Or maybe it's by weight. I can also set up minimum weights to get prepaid shipping or discounts and those sorts of things. So we can set that up, and then this will indicate whether we've reached those purchasing thresholds or not. So this is just here sort of for information. I'll show you the full vendor planning summary in a moment. But if you are purchasing, like if you've got a group of purchasers, you've got 3 or 4 purchasers, and each one of those looks after specific vendors, this is ideal because I say, hey, Joe is looking after this particular vendor, and he can plan at that level. He can say, okay, yeah, I got 17,000 roughly to spend with that vendor right now, and he can cut the PO sort of at that level without having to go in and review each individual item potentially. Okay, and then down here, this is the standard OnTrack planning from Business Central. So that's kind of handy. That's great. That's not that big of a deal. But down here, we also have a whole bunch of other stuff. So one of the things in here is this chart, and this is kind of nice. Let me find one that's got some actual history in here. This guy here has some history. So what this does is it gives us, a nice little visualization. If I'm a planner and I'm in here, and I'm saying, hey, this thing is telling me to order, 100 of these. Is that realistic? I might think, what? That doesn't seem right. Down here, I've got a very quick and easy visualization to tell me, does that make sense or not? Right? Here's my sales and purchase history. Like this, line chart is my purchase history. I can click on that, drill down on the sales history, on the purchase history, any of that kind of stuff. And everything I need for making those decisions while I'm planning is right there at my fingertips. Okay, so this gives me a nice little quick visual overview of what's going on. If I want to see that in a more tabular based form, I can click the history tab here, and I've got all my history that makes up that particular chart. I can also go in and look at my supply demand, like what do I have for sales orders, what do I have for, you know, purchase orders, what am I planning, and I've got that sort of thing that keeps track of, you know, the running total based on my ins and outs. So it's very similar to the item availability by event, but it's right here at my fingertips if I want to do that kind of analysis. Now, you know, when I came in here and I looked at this, I said, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to buy 100 like it says, because, you know, I only ever sell, you know, 16 or 15 a month. I want to change that. Well, for those of you using the planning today, you know what happens if you change this. The next time I run this thing, it's going to yell at me and tell me to buy another 85 if I change this to 15. So that's a challenge. So what do? Well, I can come in here, and instead of having to click 5 times to get to the stock keeping unit or the item card, I just click on planning here and I say, you know what? Yeah, this is ridiculous. My, you know, reorder point should be 5. My minimum order quantity should be 10, or, you know, this might be driven by the vendor, but whatever, I'll change it here. My minimum order quantity is going to be 10, and that's updating that stock keeping unit right now. So I don't have to drill down 5 times, scroll down halfway through the screen to find the planning parameters, make those changes. I've got everything here at my fingertips. Again, like I said, we underestimate the value of having everything in one place. When you look at these planners and they're having to drill down and dig around and find things, try and get that root information to figure out, does this make sense or not? That is painful. Just these little bits that I've shown you will save you hours of time every day if you're doing a lot of planning. All right, so now this all works whether you run the standard Microsoft MRP and MPS, like the standard calculate regenerative plan that you would see, you know, in the planning worksheet. But we've also got this additional capability called calculate purchase plan. So this is more for distribution environments where I can come in here, and when I do a calculate purchase plan, it does a few things that are different from the standard MRP. So this is the, you know, obviously the launch screen for that. I'm not going to go through every option here, but you can, you know, look at that if you install the trial version on AppSource. But what this does that's different from MRP is the biggest difference is we don't look at dates. And the reason for that is, well, actually, let me back up a bit. When you run standard MRP or MPS in a distribution environment, it gets very noisy. It gets very messy. You get a million cancel messages, reschedule messages, all of that kind of stuff, which is extremely painful for people in the distribution environment to manage. We don't like that. And the bulk of the reason for getting that mess of messages that people have to deal with, right? You see new cancel all the time. I figure out, well, those two offset and I'm going to delete it. Terrible, terrible. The reason that happens for the most part is everything is date phased in standard MRP. And that's very important if you're doing manufacturing, right? You want your dates accurate and all those sorts of things, which is why I invest in something like MX APS, which is a scheduling tool. But in a distribution environment, you don't really care about that. What you care about is, okay, I've cut this PO. I'm not going to reschedule it or change the quantities or whatever. That's coming from China, or, you know, that's coming from a vendor down the street. It's done, right? It's locked in. So we don't really look at the dates. And what that does is it eliminates all those cancel messages, all those, you know, reschedule messages, all those sorts of things that cause pain in that type of environment. And the other thing it does is makes it much faster. So, you know, we've got customers that run 100,000 SKUs through the system and it takes a few minutes, right? So versus MRP, which would take you half the day to run that kind of plan. And the other nice thing about this run purchase plan is it's already pre-built, ready for the job queue. So you can throw this in the job queue and have this thing run every morning at 7 o'clock. It takes 10 minutes to run if you've got 100,000 SKUs or whatever. You come in and you've got all your suggestions. Okay, so you know, just for fun, I will run this. So it's going to delete my plan. We're going to run through. I filtered down the main, so I've probably only got a few hundred SKUs to go through, but it takes a few seconds and it generates all the suggestions I need. You'll notice there's no cancels, no reschedules, nothing. Makes it very quick and easy to actually go in, run the plan, and generate it. Now, I will mention it does actually do production order planning, but it only does the top level. This is more like an MPS plan than MRP. But now I could run standard MRP and blow out the components for that particular top level item. Okay, so that's very important, right? So that calculate purchase plan for anybody that's in a distribution environment, that's almost a must-have. It's going to save you hours a day. It's going to pay for itself the first day you use the thing, and away you go. All right, so I've probably done some overkill here on the enhanced planning worksheet. There's a whole bunch of other things, just nice to have little things where you can jump into the item card or SKU very easily. We can do things like drill into some of the other tools that we have, like the forecasts and the planning review, all of that kind of stuff. It's just really nice to have everything in one spot. I guess one other thing I should mention is the, on the standard planning worksheet, you can't do drop ship and special order. You have to go to the requisition worksheet, which is kind of weird. Here we bring it all into the same worksheet so you can manage your entire process flow, including drop ships, special orders, everything from one place. Okay, so that's a little bit on the enhanced planning worksheet. Now, related to that, I mentioned the enhanced vendor summary, or the vendor planning summary page. So the vendor summary, what that allows you to do is come in here and sort of do your planning more at the vendor level than at the individual item level. So what this allows me to do is come in, and transfer orders as well, right? So if I wanted to look at all my transfer orders from, the blue location or something like that, I can include this in here. So I can manage transfer orders and, vendor orders at the same time. So I can come in here and actually, let me get rid of that because I don't have demand in the blue location for some of my vendors. So here, the idea behind this is, again, whether it's manufacturing and distribution, I might have a purchasing team that has, 3 or 4 purchasers, and each one looks after a certain number of vendors. Well, just like in standard Business Central, you can go set up, the My Vendors stuff. So we can set up which vendors I specifically look after. And then what I see is in this list, I see only the vendors that I care about. Now, we can also show any of the vendors that are planned or both planned and just my vendors, but these are the guys I care about. And I can look at this thing and I can say, you know what, we've got a bunch of stuff I'm ordering from this, but we're short $9,000 before I get my discount or my prepaid freight or whatever it is. So maybe I want to wait before I cut that PO. And I'll see this update. If I have that purchase plan thing running every, half an hour or something like that, I'll see this update regularly and I can decide, okay, yep, I'm good to go. And then I can just fire off the planning worksheet right from there for that vendor. And I can go ahead and, carry out that action message and cut the PO for that specific vendor, right? So that's the idea behind this vendor planning summary, is it allows you to assign vendors to specific employees, and then they manage that vendor purchasing, at a higher level than just looking at the planning worksheet and those individual items. So this can be handy again in distribution, but also in manufacturing if you have a team of purchasers looking after different vendors. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and look at a couple of these other little utilities that we have available here in the Enhanced Planning Pack. So item planning review, what that allows you to do, if you don't want to do the forecasting that we talked about earlier, you just want to manage your planning parameters, but you need a tool to handle that a little bit better. This will allow you to do it. So what I'm going to do, because I don't have a lot of good sample data, I'm just going to do, well, let's do a month. Here, I can come in here, I can set up a bunch of filters, and I'm going to say, show me my, my weekly numbers for that, for a specific location, those sorts of things. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, generate the data for my weekly usage for this period of time, and it'll pop up and give me my average usage here. And you can filter it down to show only items that have usage. But what this allows you to do is look at your usage and compare that to your your sales quantity. Usage is not just sales, but you can compare that to the sales quantity and what your reorder points and everything else are in the system. So this gives you a way of coming in and deciding, what, we sell 2 a week, right? So this is my weekly average. We sell 2 a week, and these reorder points don't make any sense. So I'm just going to come down here and change my reorder points, change all of that planning parameters right from here. So again, this is rather than doing a forecast, this sort of allows you to manually come in, evaluate, the information, the usage information over whatever period you like, and make those adjustments manually, or send it to Excel, do some analysis in there, and then come back in and do those edits right here. So a quick and easy way to manage your planning parameters without relying on any sort of forecasting tool. Okay. Now, the multi-level BOM viewer, these last two here, by the way, are more for the manufacturing side of things. The multi-level BOM viewer, what this guy allows us to do is really analyze the bill of materials. So this actually predates the structure page we have in the old NAV and Business Central to give us sort of that hierarchical view of a bill of materials. Now, some of the differences between this and the structure view, or some of the other hierarchical bill of material views, is number one, I don't have to have the bill of material associated with an item. So I'm not going to an item and looking it up. I'm actually going to the production BOM and using that. That's a big difference, because I might have, lower level bills of material, like maybe it's a second or third level deep, that aren't associated with an item that I still want to do some analysis on. So here I'm going to the bill of materials, brings it up and gives me sort of that hierarchical view of that bill of materials with a bit of additional information. So it gives me sort of my supply demand information in here as well. And in this case tells me, can I actually make this thing or not, or what components am I going to be short if I actually want to produce this item. And I can say, you know what, I need to produce 10 of these things, and it'll come in and tell me exactly what I'm short, those sorts of things, and allow me to do some basic analysis here. I can cost it out. The nice thing about this is you can export to Excel, do your final costing, all that kind of stuff from the screen. But one of the nicest things about this is, let's say I'm looking at this chain here, and I want to pull in this item on this bill of materials, and I'm saying, you know what, I actually don't want to maintain an item for this. I want to make this a phantom BOM, like I want to make this a production BOM. So I just do the assembly of these components, as part of the main thing. Well, I can just come in here at edit line, and without having to go into, find the parent BOM for this particular thing, mark it as under development, make the edit, certify it, all that kind of stuff, I can simply come in here and say, yeah, I'm going to change this to a production BOM. And I can make whatever changes I want here, hit OK, and it makes that edit for me automatically without the hassle of doing the, under development and, change and then certify and going hunting for it. I can just review this bill of materials, make those changes right here. And, I can drill down. If I want to see that item card, I can just show that. It'll show me either the production BOM, if this is a production BOM line, or show me the item card if I need to do any adjustments here. The other nice thing about this is if you do have more complex BOMs, and I want to see this in a more sort of graphical view, I can come in here and I can show the diagram view, and I can see sort of the more hierarchical bill of materials and sort of this organization view. And same thing here, I can come in and say, you know what, this makes no sense for this to be an item. I'm going to click on this, and I can do that editing from here as well. Okay. So, and by the way, the fields on here that are editable, those are, some standard ones that are available. You can extend this and add whatever fields you want in here as well. So if there's specific other things that you want to edit, you can go ahead and do that there. All right, so that's a little bit on the, multi-level bill of materials. It's got a lot of nice options, and in a lot of ways, it definitely exceeds the capabilities and enhances the structure view that you see in Business Central. Now, the last one that I'll talk about, and I've had some coffee this morning, so I'm talking a mile a minute, so we're going to finish a little bit early, but that's the routing analysis. So routing analysis allows us to compare our actual times that we've recorded in the shop to our expected run times and setup times. So the way we get the actual times, of course, is, use something like Shop Floor Insight, or, manually enter the time, but manually entering the time is no fun. Use something like Shop Floor Insight to capture the actual times that we spend on production activities. And then we can use routing analysis to figure out what's going on with that. So when I open this guy up, much like the BOM viewer, we're not dealing with items here. We're dealing with routings, right? Routings and BOMs, not specific items. So I can come in here and I can say for a specific routing, like the sample one here, I'm going to do some analysis on that specific routing. Now this routing might apply to 10 different items, right? A lot of people have sort of semi-generic routings where, it's the same item and they apply the same routing to the same item. And so this is looking at all of those individual items that this routing is applied to. Well, specifically, it's looking at all the production orders that have used this particular routing. So in my case, I've only got 2 production orders in the system for this time frame that I specified. that have used that routing, and we can see our actual time to our expected time. So we've got a 1 hour runtime here, and we on average we're less than a quarter of an hour, so it gives us that difference. And by the way, we can filter that out, so you can say I only want to see things that are really out of whack, like show me anything that's more than 50% out. You can set that up, and it'll only show those. Now, this is not good, right? If it's taking me a quarter of an hour to do and I expected an hour, that could be impacting costing, it's impacting scheduling, all that fun stuff. So I might want to actually just come in here and say, you know what, let's change that to a quarter hour instead, and you can make the units of measure thing visible and everything else. And again, that's done the same thing as what we saw on the multi-level BOM page. It's gone to this routing, it's put it under development, it's made that change, it's certified it. It's a very quick and easy way to adapt your routings to what you're actually seeing in the facility. Now this guy here is a little bit interesting because you know what, we're expecting 10 minutes or 10 hours or whatever this is. Again, you probably want to make the unit of measure field visible if you're using different units of measure, but we've got 10 hours here, let's say, for this particular activity. It's usually taking us about 9.5. That is pretty good, right? Like we're within a few percent of our expected time. I could absolutely live with that. But we have a much bigger issue here, and that's this column here, the standard deviation. So this is telling us, or giving us a measure of the variability within that process. And this is the number of sigmas. So this is like 8 sigmas. That's bad. Like we don't want that. Anything that's more than 1 probably is something you need to look at, because what that's telling me is every time I perform this activity, I'm entering a different time for it. So sometimes it might take me an hour, sometimes it might take me 20 hours, other times 12 hours. I have a high variability within this process. That's bad. You don't want that in manufacturing, right? You want things to run seamlessly regardless of who's doing it, whether it's Friday afternoon, Monday morning, or Wednesday afternoon. You want it to run in the same amount of time every single time. So even though we're saying, yeah, we're on average, we're pretty good, we're meeting our expected time, but in reality, when Joe does it, he does it in 10 minutes, and Fred does it in 2 hours, and Nancy does it in 6 hours, right? That's a big problem. So beyond just the actual times, we're also looking at the variability within that process as well. Okay, so this is a very, very handy screen, almost a must-have for anybody doing manufacturing and tracking their actual times against production, because this is, again, from a quality perspective and costing perspective, it's going to give you that measure of variability, and it's also going to help you significantly improve your scheduling and your capacity management and everything else by ensuring that your expected times match what it actually takes you to do in the shop floor. Okay, so that is really a quick overview, high-speed overview. Normally I tell people, when you rewatch these videos, you can bump it up to 1.5 times playback speed. Today, you don't have to do that because I think I was already running at 1.5 times speed. But that's a quick overview of the planning worksheet. But before everybody runs away, let me just throw out a couple of links here. If you want more information on what we looked at, go to planningfordynamics.com. It's got some, the marketing information, links, and everything in there that you need. You can also install it from AppSource, so you can install it and use it. So use everything that I've shown you here on a trial basis from AppSource, right away without talking to us or anything, because who wants to do that? And then some related links here as well for some of the other tools that I may have mentioned, or that may be, sort of useful if you're doing any type of planning as well, right? The shop floor insight and the MX APS for scheduling and the warehouse management, those types of things. All right, with that was a nice rocket ride through the system. Thanks everybody for attending. I hope you have a great rest of the week.
Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content.